Did you know that the most famous food on America's table is hiding a crime scene? Fried chicken, barbecue, sweet potato pie, and so many more. Today they are sold as comfort, traditional food, and Southern pride. But before restaurants and food brands claimed them, many of these dishes were shaped by black women trapped inside slavery, where food was counted like fuel. Rations were kept painfully small, and hunger was used to keep nearly 4 million enslaved people working by 1860. So ask yourself, how did a people denied comfort create America's comfort food? And why were the hands that saved these foods erased while America kept eating? This is Hidden Black Chronicles, and together, we bring buried stories back into the light. Now let's uncover 10 secret foods that helped enslaved black women outsmart their oppressors and survive the unthinkable. Number 1. Fried chicken. Walk into almost any American city, and fried chicken is everywhere. Fast food signs, airport counters, family cookouts, glossy restaurant menus, golden crust, seasoned meat, hot grease, a smell that makes people turn their heads before they even see the plate. America built businesses, slogans, and whole chains around that craving, yet the story behind the flavor was treated far more cheaply than the food itself. For black people, that's truly a hilarious insult. The country learned to love a dish carried through black kitchens, then spent generations using the same dish to mock the people who made it powerful. On many plantations, food arrived like a calculation made without tenderness. Montpellier's records describe enslaved people receiving small weekly rations, often cornmeal and pork, while the labor demanded from them swallowed far more strength than such food could restore. After a day spent growing another man's wealth, families still had to patch the hunger left by the ration system through small gardens, fishing, trapping, and whatever animals could be kept near the cabin. The body was forced to work for the plantation, then work again to survive what the plantation refused to provide. Inside that cruel gap, a chicken became a life jacket. At Appomattox, National Park Service records note that enslaved communities kept chickens, ducks, and small garden plots of about a quarter acre. A hen could mean eggs for a child, meat for a rare Sunday, something to trade, something to sell, something alive in a household surrounded by rules designed to make people want to die of impoverishment.
Because I think it has a lot better of a texture, more interesting fried textures later. Cut that out. So we're going to sweeten it to balance the salt and allow also flavor.
Judging the heat of
gently lay it in there. We're also going to be double frying. So this is the first fry where we want to zing and crunch from the pickles.
Adrian Miller has explained how labor-intensive fried chicken once was, which is why it often belonged to special meals, church gatherings, and community tables. The dish carried work inside its flavor. Then came the theft of credit. Mary Randolph's. The Virginia housewife entered culinary history in 1824 under the name of a white Virginia woman from a slaveholding world. While scholars have noted how much such cooking depended on enslaved kitchen labor, the printed page carried one name. The living knowledge came from people whose names were left outside the book. After the Civil War, black women pushed fried chicken even further into American life. In Gordonsville, Virginia, African-American waiter carriers sold fried chicken, pies, biscuits, and homemade food to railroad passengers. Local memory preserves Bella Winston's line that her mother paid for a home with chicken legs. That single sentence carries a whole reversal. Women once treated as property, using chicken to buy shelter, income, and ground beneath their own feet. Mainstream America took the flavor and built an empire around it. At the same time, racist culture twisted fried chicken into a stereotype against black people. The country ate what black women perfected, cashed in on what black communities carried, then acted as if the very association proved something shameful about them. That is the raw nerve beneath this dish. Fried chicken became American comfort after black women had already made it survival, business, and a language of dignity no insult could fully erase. Number 2. BBQ and smoked meat.
Now, we're still on step 4, smoking, so I'm putting my brisket on this portion of the cook. In my case, I had to look after my... I'm going to keep smoking the brisket like this for 6...
Follow that smoke backward, past the backyard grills and shiny restaurant smokers. And it leads to men, women, and even children hauling wood, digging trenches, salting meat, tending coals, serving crowds, then cleaning the ground after other people had eaten their fill. Barbecue carried the smell of celebration for the powerful, but for the enslaved, the fire often meant another long command. Adrian Miller has written that a traditional Southern barbecue required clearing land, cutting trees, burning wood into coals, preparing whole animals, watching the pit for hours, seasoning, serving, making side dishes, pouring drinks, and cleaning afterward. In the antebellum South, much of that heavy, unpaid work fell on African Americans held in bondage. There was another cruelty hidden in the meat itself. On plantations, food followed rank. The favored cuts moved toward the big house, while tougher parts, bony pieces, feet, knuckles, ribs, and entrails were pushed toward people already forced to live on cornmeal, salted fish, or other plain rations. Mount Vernon records show enslaved workers there received standard rations such as cornmeal and salted fish, while still having to garden, fish, trap, and hunt to bring variety into a diet that could barely answer the labor demanded from them. So when black cooks stood beside a pit, they were not simply preparing a feast, they were studying what power had thrown downward. Tough meat needed time, smoke had to move slowly, fire could not rage like anger. It had to be held low, watched, fed, disciplined. Salt pulled moisture from flesh. Smoke helped preserve it before refrigeration. Heat softened what the knife alone could not save. In that long patience, pieces once treated as lesser began to carry a flavor people would later drive miles to taste. The records sometimes let a face emerge through the smoke. Lewis Hughes, who had been enslaved, remembered 4th of July barbecues as events that people looked toward through the darkness of the year. Children gathered wood and bark for the pits. Adults waited for the rare day when food, music, and company could loosen the weight of bondage for a few hours. That joy deserves to be seen, but it should never be used to soften the cage around it. A day of barbecue did not return ownership of time, children, even their own bodies. After emancipation, black pitmasters carried the knowledge beyond the plantation. They cooked for public gatherings, rail stops, town events, churches, and later migrating black communities that brought Southern smoke into northern cities. Yet the public story
only way to the top, becoming the Michelin restaurant called Jean George, and then I took a step away from where I started teaching myself how to smoke meat.
Picking one rack of pork ribs for today, I never really have any way to...
That is why barbecue has to be remembered through the pit, not only the plate. The parts once pushed aside became prized. The labor once hidden became heritage. And inside, the smoke sits a truth. America still struggles to name. The people given the toughest cuts and the longest hours helped build one of the deepest flavors in the country. Number 3. Shrimp and grits. The richest marshes in the South once sent black families back to cabins with bowls thin enough to make a child stop asking for more. Follow that bowl into the Lowcountry rice country, and shrimp and grits no longer looks like brunch. It begins to look like a cooking fire, left burning
right
beside
out
a
of the
crime
water they
nobody
worked in,
wanted
so they
written
could
down.
survive.
By
It
1708,
relied
enslaved
entirely on
Africans had become the
specialized
majority in South Carolina,
knowledge.
and
To
that number tells a
understand
brutal truth
shrimp and
about who
grits,
truly
you need to
built the wealth
understand
of the
the
coast.
math of
Plantation owners needed people who understood wetland rice, tides, heat, and water. They took African knowledge, forced it into the mud, then paid it back with rations counted as cheaply as possible. Cornmeal could be scooped from a barrel. Salted meat could be sliced thinner. Dried fish could be made to last past decency. The plantation ledger cared about output, not the nursing mother whose body needed food, not the old man whose teeth could barely handle the salt meat, not the child watching the pot and learning too early that hunger had rules. In that world, food control became another form of ownership. A slaveholder did not need to stand at the cabin door every night to make his power felt. It was already there in the ration, in the missing fat, in the meal stretched with too much water, in the way a woman could work all day, near abundance, and still return to a home where every spoonful had to be negotiated with scarcity. The same plantation rich enough to feast could still leave their children waiting over a poor man's pot. Somewhere in that pressure, an unnamed Gullah Geechee woman made the decision that turned survival into food history. Grits gave her something to begin with. Ground corn, water, heat, patience. She could make it swell, make it shareable, make it hold the stomach long enough for sleep to come. The overseer might have seen cornmeal as maintenance for labor, but beside that small fire, it became a mother's way of pushing back against the insult of the ration. Then the marsh gave what the plantation had tried to withhold. The Gullah Geechee people knew the creeks, the shrimp runs, the oyster beds, the moves
navigated
of
the aggressive tides,
outsiders
unpredictable
could walk
weather
past
of
and
the
never
Lowcountry
understand.
in the dark.
A few shrimp pulled from the water would mean almost
didn't do this
nothing
because
in a
they
slaveholder's
were
account
terrified
book.
of the water.
Yet
They just
inside
catch
a
a
cabin,
few fish for their
they could
families.
change the
They
whole
controlled
night.
the entire.
Their briny
Once the mosquito
sweetness
fleet
slipped into
brought
the
that
corn.
catch to the
A
docks,
little
they
grease,
handed
pepper,
off to black
onion
women.
if luck
These
allowed.
women had added the day.
And suddenly
Those
the
women
bowl
took
carried something
whatever
the
shrimp
ration
was left
never
over
intended to
and brought
give.
it back home to their cabins.
Warmth with
combined
memory in
with
it.
those meager.
That is the part America rarely slows down to taste. Shrimp and grits traveled from cabins, coastal kitchens, fishing communities, and black foodways into restaurants, cookbooks, and polished Southern menus. The dish became respectable after the hands behind it had been kept unnamed for generations.
30 more seconds.
People praised the
good. This is getting a good
creaminess
texture
of the
to it.
grits and the sweetness of the
It may need
shrimp,
another
while the older
Overnight,
scenes
the
stayed in the
establishment
shadows.
rebranded a century across
Women
the country,
preparing a
stole the
deliberately starved
blueprint. They
table.
slapped the 30
Children
Again,
fed
notice,
from a pot
one
made larger
fork.
by intelligence.
from a black
and a coastal
man
black
who caught
culture,
it that
turning
morning.
marsh
They
knowledge
didn't
into
just control the
nourishment
water,
under the eyes
they
of a system
controlled the street
built on
level
taking.
economics.
So when
It
shrimp and
echoed
grits
through the
appear today
neighborhoods,
under
letting
warm
the city
restaurant
know
light,
exactly
it
what
carries
was
not
fresh
just
that
comfort,
day.
but
They
also the
walked those
quiet
cobblestone
brilliance
streets
of
of
black
Charleston
women who
with
found a way to
massive
put the
baskets
sea into a
balanced
bowl.
on their head.
The
They didn't just
plantation
use a
meant to keep
sign or
empty.
print a storefront. They used specific method of street cries.
Number 4. Black-eyed peas and collard greens. On New Year's Day, a pot of black-eyed peas sits on an American table like a promise. The peas are said to bring luck. The greens are said to bring money. Cornbread, if it is there, glows like gold. Families laugh. Elders remind the young to take at least one spoonful, and the whole meal feels almost cheerful. Then the older shadow enters the room. Before this food carried wishes for
we've already
prosperity.
sorted, and just
It
like
came
you see.
from people
Now I'm
denied
gonna go ahead and
prosperity
go into the bottom,
so
make sure
completely
nothing
that
can
even
get
a
this
small
out.
garden
But I
behind
just
a
want to show
cabin
this. You
could
see how
become
it's
a
starting to
matter of
thicken up?
survival.
Now there's two.
In the plantation south, food was measured through power. A ration could keep the field moving while leaving the body underfed. The person who planted, harvested, cooked, washed, carried, and endured was then expected to use the little time left to grow the food that might fill the gap. The cruelty sits in that arrangement. After a week of labor that belonged to someone else, an enslaved woman might still have to bend over a garden patch on Saturday or Sunday, pulling weeds, checking peas, cutting collards, saving seeds, choosing which leaves could go into the pot and which had to wait. What looked small from the big house could decide whether a child slept hungry. Black-eyed peas carried more than cheap nourishment. They belonged to the larger family of cowpeas with deep roots in Africa, crossing the Atlantic inside the violence of the slave trade and then taking hold in southern soil. A slaveholder might see only a low-cost food. A black mother might see something tougher. A seed that could dry, store, sprout, feed, and return next season. Collard greens brought another kind of strength. Their leaves could fill a pot when meat was scarce. A small piece of salted pork, fat rack, or ham hock, if one could be spared, had
We
to
just put them in
season
here.
everything.
I'm going to wait.
The
now.
water left behind after cooking,
I'm gonna go ahead and set
was
this.
never empty water.
This right
It
here,
held
we're going to have to
salt,
work in here
fat,
and get this out.
minerals,
But I
bitterness
see that meat right
softened
there?
by
That's a
time,
whole lot of
and
flavor.
whatever strength
You
the
see that?
greens
And
had
then the only thing
released.
left in here.
Cornbread dipped into that broth could become the last warm part of the meal. This was the intelligence of people forced to waste nothing. They did not wait for abundance to respect food. They made a system from peas, greens, scraps, broth, fire, and memory. Over time, the meaning changed without losing the wound. Black-eyed peas and collard greens became a New Year's ritual, a way of asking the year ahead for luck, money, and protection. Yet beneath that hope is an older truth. Survival itself had become sacred. The descendants who placed this food on the table were not simply repeating a custom. They were carrying forward a message from people who had learned to plant possibility in the same ground where suffering had been forced to grow. So when America eats peas and greens for luck, it should remember the hands that first made luck out of hunger. Number 5. Sweet potato pie. A slice of sweet potato pie can look almost too warm to carry such a history. Brown-orange filling, soft crust, cinnamon, nutmeg, butter, sugar. The kind of sweetness people place on a holiday table when they want the room to feel safe.
Silky, creamy,
but before the
and
pie, there was
packed.
the
I love the
root.
spice.
On plantations across the Caribbean and the Americas, sweet potatoes often appeared in the hard language of rations. Salt fish, maize, sometimes salted meat. Sweet potatoes. Food handed out by owners who were not feeding families as families but maintaining bodies for labor. A crop that grew well in poor soil became useful to a world that wanted black people alive enough to work, yet never full enough to rest. That is the cruel beginning behind the sweetness. The sweet potato could fill a stomach, but it also carried the mark of a society that looked down on the people who depended on it. In the 17th and 18th centuries, racist thinking helped brand the sweet potato as food of the enslaved, as if the shame belonged to the crop instead of the system that forced people into hunger. Still, black cooks saw more than insult in that root. Many enslaved Africans carried food memories of West African yams, and in America, sweet potatoes became a substitute close enough to stir recognition. A root pulled from unfamiliar soil could answer an older memory. Roasted in ashes, it softened into a natural sweetness. Mashed, baked, spiced, and later folded into crust, it became something a ration was never meant to become. A taste of comfort chosen by the people who had been denied comfort.
Today,
the pie mattered because time to make joy was rare.
Sweet,
a woman with a few sweet potatoes, a little
silky
sugar,
smooth,
maybe eggs,
and
milk,
just
butter,
homemade
spice,
dishes to share with your family and friends. To cut and adventurously showing you what happens on that first cut.
Children
Before I take a bite,
if
it cozy pies
Families
in
would
one
carry the
playlist
recipe.
for you.
After slavery, Abby Fisher, once enslaved herself, helped place sweet potato pie into the printed record in her 1881 cookbook, giving public form to a tradition long held in black kitchens. From there, the pie kept traveling. Mary McLeod Bethune sold sweet potato pies to raise money for black education. Georgia Gilmore baked and cooked to support the Montgomery bus boycott. In our own time, sweet potato pies have been used after racial grief to gather people, speak, mourn, and heal. So when this pie appears on a holiday table, it is carrying more than sweetness. It carries a root once dismissed, a memory of yam, the labor of women whose names rarely survived, and the quiet decision to keep joy alive when history tried to make joy impossible.
I fight off the greedy spirit.
Number 6. Hominy and grits.
A bowl of grits or until they're tender.
When
Salt
butter melts across the
and
top.
serve immediately.
Follow that corn back far enough, and it leads to a field where a child could eat from a tin cup tied to the waist, swallow quickly, and return to cotton before the sun moved much farther. Cornmeal fit the plantation's cruelty too well. It was cheap, dry, easy to issue, easy to stretch with water, and easy to carry into the field. Frederick Douglass described ash cake made from meal and water, wrapped in leaves and buried in hot ashes, because enslaved people often lacked proper ovens and utensils. Other accounts remembered mush or loblolly handed out by the pint, eaten fast where the work was happening. A meal had been shrunk into a pause the overseer could tolerate. Somewhere inside that order, a mother might hold back part of her own ash cake for a child who would have nothing at night. No speech, no ceremony, only a small piece of cornbread saved against hunger. Yet corn also carried older knowledge. Native communities had long transformed kernels with wood ash or lime, making hominy, softer, easier to grind, easier to cook, richer for the body. Enslaved black cooks lived with corn as ration, then turned it into ash cake, hoe cake, mush, hominy, and grits. So the modern bowl should carry the field, the ash, the mother's hand, and the native wisdom of changing corn itself. The cheapest grain became survival with memory stirred in. Number 7. Biscuit. The first thing to hear is not the crack of the crust, but the bell. A traveler reached the plantation after midnight. Lights moved inside the big house. Then the call went out to the kitchen, where an enslaved cook had to leave whatever scraps of sleep her body had managed to keep. For the guest, hot biscuits, ham, and brandy at 2:30 in the morning felt like Southern hospitality. For the woman at the fire, it meant cold flour, aching hands, lard cut into dough, and an oven made hot for someone else's comfort. Biscuit belonged to a different table than field mush or ash cake. White flour carried privilege. It spoke of the main house, polished manners, full plates, and visitors welcomed at any hour. Yet the skill that made those biscuits rise often lived in black hands. Knowing when the dough had been touched enough, when the fat was right, when the oven would lift the bread instead of hardening it. Plantation guests praised the host. The kitchen kept the truth. After slavery, biscuits traveled into black homes, churches, restaurants, and memory. Alexander P. Ashbourne, a black inventor, patented an improved biscuit cutter in 1875. Edna Lewis later helped restore black Southern cooking to the dignity it had always carried. So the biscuit should be remembered with its butter, yes, but also with the midnight bell, the hot kitchen, and the unnamed cooks who made Southern comfort rise. Number 8. Oxtail and pig feet. If you want to see how far power reached on a plantation, watch where the knife sent the meat. The clean cuts, the soft cuts, the pieces that looked respectable on a white table, moved toward the house where the silver was kept. What drifted downward were feet, tails,
to go back,
skin,
what was
bones,
left over
joints,
wasn't
pieces
even
that
considered
asked for
food
washing,
by
scraping,
white
waiting,
folks' term.
and a
They
patience no
realized
hungry
that
family
the
should
system's
have been
arrogance
forced to
was
learn so
actually
early. That
but
division
black
could
cooks didn't
change
have
from
time
place to place,
for pity.
but the cruelty
They worked
behind
too
it was
busy
familiar
engineering a
enough.
masterpiece.
Even
packed
food
tight
had
with
a social
thick
rank.
connective tissue,
Somewhere near the
cartilage, and
quarters,
massive bone.
a woman
In the
bent
American
over a
South,
pot with
they
peg feet
utilized
that
the
needed
ancestral
time
knowledge
before
of
they
Western
would give
Africa
anything
one-pot
back.
cooking.
The water
Then
clouded,
they
the
stretched
skin
the meat
softened,
by
the
adding butter
bones
beans to
loosened
soak
their
up
strength.
the liquid. But
Oxtail worked the
it
same
requires
slow
time
miracle.
and strategy.
Little meat,
Think about the
much
anatomy
bone,
of an ox.
deep
Weaponized
marrow,
it. They took
thick
cane
broth
sugar,
if the
burned
fire
it down
stayed
to the
low,
bottom
the cook
in
knew
heavy
how to
Dutch
listen.
pot.
A splash
So
of vinegar,
black cooks
pepper,
across the
onion,
diaspora
a little salt
hacked
if
the
there
system
was
by
any,
turning the
and the
cast
part
iron
once
pot
pushed aside
into
began
a
to
chemical.
feed more than
Black
one
cooks
mouth.
understood
This
something that
was the
many people at the
genius
time
born
did.
under insult.
That
People
mahogany
handed the
crust
hardest
and that
cuts,
flavor
learned to make the
profile that is
deepest
impossible
pots.
to pieces
Now
of
oxtail
garbage.
appears
But when
on
black
menus
cooks
with
looked at
prices
it,
that would
they
have
saw
stunned the
collagen,
people who
they saw
once saw it
marrow,
as low.
they saw that it was the
Restaurants
meat
dress
that was
it in
specifically
gravy,
designed
pasta,
to make you feel like
patties,
you were at
rice,
the bottom
and fame.
of the economic
Yet inside
ladder.
every rich
Lab.
spoonful
They didn't just
is an
cook
older
the meat,
kitchen
they
where
broke
black
it down
hands taught
on
America
a cellular level. The world.
that even the tail
Black
end
women
of the
opened
animal
restaurants,
could carry
boarding
a family
houses,
through the
and
night.
alley cook shops that fed the massive black working class.
Number 9. Pound cake. Sugar can lie better than almost any ingredient. On a holiday table, pound cake looks harmless. Golden crust, heavy crumb, the smell of butter and vanilla settling into the room. But the old recipe carried a cruel arithmetic. A pound of sugar, a pound of butter, a pound of flour, a pound of eggs. And in a slave-holding world, every one of those ingredients asked who had the right to sweetness. Sugar came through an Atlantic economy stained by plantation labor. White flour, butter, and eggs belonged more easily to the kitchens of people with property than to the hands forced to cook for them. In the main house, a black woman could beat eggs until her arm ached, cream butter and sugar by memory, test the oven by heat against her skin, and send out a cake rich enough to make guests praise the household. Her skill entered the room. Her name often did not. Still, cake did not remain only on the table of power. In enslaved quarters, cakewalk traditions turned cake into prize, laughter, and quiet mockery of those who ruled. After slavery, women like Melinda Russell carried Black culinary knowledge into print. Later, pound cake moved through church kitchens, weddings, funerals, baby showers, and even civil rights organizing, where women sold food and desserts to keep movements alive. So that slice of pound cake carries sweetness, but also labor, memory, and a long return. Black hands took ingredients marked by privilege and made them speak in the language of family. Number 10. Hot sauce. The smallest thing on the table may have been the hardest to take away. A ration could be measured by someone else. Cornmeal, salted meat, beans, greens, whatever was cheap enough to keep a body moving. The owner could decide the portion, the hour, the quality, even the boredom of the meal. Yet a few peppers in a garden, a splash of vinegar, a pinch of salt, and a glass bottle could slip a different power back into the food. Pepper vinegar did not fill the stomach. It did something quieter, almost more stubborn. It woke up the mouth. It cut through old fat, lifted boiled greens, sharpened beans, touched hard meat with heat and acid, until a forced meal carried the cook's hand again. In that small burn lived West African memories of spice, the habit of saving seeds, the courage to make flavor where the system had left little choice. Long before hot sauce became a brand, it lived in cabins, gardens, pots, church tables, and black kitchens that knew how to rescue food from dullness. A bottle could be refilled with vinegar when it ran low, as if the taste itself refused to end. So hot sauce closes this list not as a side note, but as a red thread through everything before it. They were handed meals meant only for survival, and still found a way to make them sing. Every dish in this story began with a wound. A ration measured too small, a cut of meat pushed too low, a garden grown after exhaustion, a fire kept alive when dignity was nearly denied. Yet from those kitchens came more than food. Black women and black communities turned hunger into memory, scraps into skill, and survival into flavors America still gathers around today. So the next time these dishes reach your table, pause before the first bite. Remember the hands history tried to hide. Subscribe to Hidden Black Chronicles and help bring buried stories back into the light together.